returning from my first episode. I appreciate your spending your time with me, and for those of you who are checking this out for the first time, welcome. I hope you find my podcasts to be engaging, informative, and just an overall pleasant experience. And certainly I look forward to your feedback as well as I perfect my craft of podcasting. So it's been about 3 weeks, I think, since I did my last podcast. I had anticipated doing these every 1 to 2 weeks, thinking that it might be easier for me to keep up with video blogging, so to speak, rather than actually posting on my regular traditional blog. Turns out that trying to keep up with anything in that time frame is just a little bit unrealistic for my lifestyle. I work full time. My husband and I are very active in our community and enjoy sort of spending time together. So the weekends are really valuable to us. I'm thinking that it's going to be more realistic for me to do this probably every 3 to 4 weeks. But on the flip side, that gives me more time to find new patterns, enhance my stash, and also work on projects so that I actually have something to show you rather than just talking about what I've been working on. So that's sort of my plan for right now. I have recorded this twice, only to find out that my audio and video weren't synced together. And unfortunately, I think it's due to the age of my laptop. My MacBook is very near and dear to my heart, but at 6 years old, even with the latest software, it's still a little bit behind the times. So I have to give a shout out to my husband because he's letting me use his work laptop to record today, so that I don't have further delay in getting this up on YouTube and sharing it with the knitting community. So other than sort of life just happening, May is a really busy month for me. So I haven't been knitting as much as I'd like, but I've really enhanced my stash a lot. So I've got some good wares to show with you today. One thing I've really enjoyed after working some pretty full days is coming home and watching some knitting podcasts. I think I mentioned in my first episode that I work in higher education, which is incredibly fulfilling. And in the month of May, there's a lot of activities and events to celebrate the success of our students. And so the days are long, but again, very meaningful. But when I come home, I'm afraid to pick up my knitting sometimes because I'm not 100% focused and I'm always afraid I'm going to make a mistake. And sometimes frogging is therapeutic, but frogging because you didn't pay attention, not so much. So I just turn to the YouTube and turn to podcasts instead. So a couple that I want to share with you if you haven't already checked them out. Certainly keep up with Julie from Diary of a Yarn Snob and Jody and Tracy of the Grocery Girls. But I've also been viewing the Knitting Expat. Mina is the host of that podcast. And she certainly is very knowledgeable, has a lot to share, but she also has some excellent video tutorials. And those tutorials got me hooked, and I am going to be venturing into my first pair of 2-at-a-time socks. So stay tuned for my sort of updates on those and how I progress. But I'm used to knitting my socks one at a time using double pointed needles or DPNs. So I'm looking forward to going back to that tutorial, following along, and picking that project up shortly. I've also been watching Yarngasm, which is hosted by Kristen, and Kristen is also the brains behind the Woolen Buying Yarns collection. So I encourage you to check out her podcast. They're pretty brief, and she posts with much more frequency. But she's got some good techniques and tips to share, and she's just enjoyable to watch overall. And I also just came across a new podcast called Hand Me My Knitting. I think she's only 5 or 6 episodes in, and I unfortunately can't recall her name, but it's, again, another podcaster or another knitter who's podcasting, sharing her work and her projects and her experiences, and I just found her to be really enjoyable as well. So I encourage you to check those out. So, there's been a lot of stash enhancement in the last couple of weeks, and part of it is because I haven't been able to knit as much. I've been purchasing yarn, and my mom and Auntie Judy have also been out and about and visiting yarn stores, so they've kind of enhanced my stash a little bit as well, which really means I need to get some projects on the needles, but all in due time. So the first thing I want to share with you, I was so excited about. I think I mentioned in the first episode, my aunt is a fiber artist, and she has a strong network of connections, particularly in Western New York, where she resides. And one of those individuals is Suzanne, and she's the brains behind Zany Crafts Felted Art. I follow Suzanne on Instagram on her Zany's Crafts site or Instagram feed to kind of see what she's up to, what new pieces she has. Last year, my aunt was part of a juried show and had the chance to show off her own knitwear from the yarns that she's dyed, but I'll also sell some of the projects that she's made and her actual fiber. My mom was with my aunt for that event, and my mom had the chance to meet Suzanne as well, and she brought me back a pair of felted earrings and a felted flower brooch. Both of them I posted on Instagram, but I really enjoyed that connection to somebody else and being able to, as I see her work on Instagram or on Etsy, say, I know who that is, or through my aunt, I know who that is. So long story short, Zany Felted Crafts posted on Instagram some sock blanks that Suzanne had recently dyed, and I just had to buy one. This is, if you're not familiar with a sock blank, it is, for lack of a better term, plain fiber that is knit up on a knitting machine, and then Suzanne has gone in and dyed it. The sock weight yarn, it's a merino nylon blend, so it's going to make a beautiful pair of socks or even a shawl. But the great part is, I don't know how it's going to look once it's knit up, because it's not going to necessarily mimic how it's dyed right now as a sock blank. And so the one end is, it's simply just frogging it, which feels, again, kind of like a sin, but you frog it and you can cake it, ball it, however you want to use it, and then go ahead and knit. I love the colors. It's kind of outside my typical color preference. I love all colors. I really do. My colleagues are constantly commenting on the fact that I don't have a particular set of colors in my wardrobe. I enjoy the rainbow. But sorry, that sounded like a Skittles ad. Anyways, I just liked the blends of the blues and the pinks and the purples. And this blank has sparkle in it. And again, who doesn't love sparkle? So I'm really excited to have this in my stash. It's my first sock blank ever, so I'm going to take it and cake it up. And I think it's probably going to become a pair of socks, but it'll probably be a pair of selfish socks, because I like to keep my cozies toesies, or my toesies cozies. Anyways, so that's one of my newest acquisitions. Next up is the result of my trolling around on Etsy. Sometimes I just need a mental moment. I go to my phone, I go to my Etsy app, and I start searching for fiber. And Etsy's great because it shows things that you may like based on your preferences or things that you've previously purchased or liked. I set the filter to artists in New England because I wanted to be able to support somebody locally as far as their efforts or their contributions to the fiber community. So I set it to Massachusetts and came up with this beauty. This is the creation of Julie Spins. Let me get her card up here for you. Julie Spins. Julie is a scientist by day, and I would refer to her as a fiber scientist by night. This is one of her creations. She has many different weights of fiber and types. This is a single ply, actually, so that's why I also fell in love with it. This is her Vera fingering. It's 100% superwash merino. It's about 500 yards, and it's in the colorway zinnias. And it's just got this really delicate blend of like a hibiscus pink almost, and some teal and green, and then there's some yellows up here with browns and grays. Yellow and gray are two colors close to my heart. Those are the colors that were in my wedding. So I sort of am drawn to them when I see them in a fiber. But I also was smitten with this because it's single ply. And because it doesn't have the nylon in it, I won't use it for socks. I'll probably use it for a shawl. But it spoke to me. And beyond the fact that I love gardening and I love zinnias, the colors screamed to me Mediterranean, Europe, Italy. My husband and I are going to be going with my in-laws on a Mediterranean cruise in September. And I thought to myself, this would make up a perfect shawl that would be totally appropriate for that time of year and that climate to wear as part of our trip. So I am ecstatic to have this. And I think what I'm going to knit, the shawl I'm going to knit, is this Spindrift shawl by Helen of Curious Handmade. This pattern's available on Ravelry. My goodness, I can't talk today. It's available on Ravelry. You can purchase it, or you can participate in a sort of like a web-based knit-along, where she gives you or sends emails with techniques and tutorials on different approaches to your knitting as it relates to the shawl. If you go that route, the pattern is free. The emails are really helpful. It just kind of is, again, enhancing my knitting knowledge. So I'm really glad that I came upon that. But I think that this is going to make a really pretty spindrift shawl. So I'm excited about that. All right. So as I've mentioned, my mom and her neighbor, who I refer to as my Auntie Judy, are pretty frequent in the local yarn stores. But actually it's probably more like a month ago at this point, my mom gave me a call and said, hey, we have the opportunity to go with Auntie Judy and Uncle Don up to Maine to a yarn store. I think it's right outside of Portland or Freeport. Auntie Judy had won something, or I think they had a yarn in stock that she had asked them to order. So anyways, my mom said, we're going to go on this day trip. But something that's sort of unique about my parents and their living situation is that my grandmother lives with them, my mom's mom. And I am very fortunate at my age to still have my grandmother with us. She's 90 and a half, I guess. She'll be 91 in October. And to leave my grandmother for a full day alone isn't problematic. She's still able to get around quite well, prepares her meals and everything. But my mom just gets nervous leaving her for that length of time. So I said to my mom not to worry. I said, I'll bring my knitting over. My husband will come by. We'll have dinner with Grandma, and we'll just spend the day with her. So it was kind of a real treat. My grandmother was integral in my growing up. Whenever my parents were out or had to stay late at work, it was my grandmother who watched me. So I sort of feel like it's an opportunity for me to pay it forward and take care of her. But as a present, which they really didn't have to do this, again, family is everything to me, so it wasn't a problem. But my mom did bring me back some sock yarn. And again, going with the yellows and the gray theme, she found this Regia 4-ply. And it's the Polar Night colorway. It's a really sturdy sock yarn. I haven't knit with this line of yarns at this point in my knitting career. But it's 75% virgin wool and 25% polyamide. But what's great about it is that it has a pattern that knits up based on the way in which it's been dyed. So I don't know how clear that is on the screen. But it's just, I think it's going to be a really awesome result. And again, my colors are near and dear to my heart. And what I really like too is this gray is almost like a purple gray, lavender. So I think it's going to be really beautiful. But I was recently going through clothes as the change of the season comes on board. And I really do need new socks, and I've committed to knitting my socks. So I really got to get on the needles here. But that's another stash enhancement. Wouldn't you know, last weekend, my parents, Uncle Don and Auntie Judy, went on another road trip. This time they went to Webb's. Webb's is the, I guess, Mecca local yarn store, if you will. It's about 2.5, 3 hours from us in Northampton, Massachusetts. They have annual sales, and my Auntie Judy needed to stock up on her stash, and my mom and dad had never been. And frankly, I've never been either, so I might have had a little bit of jealousy. But they promised me a trip this summer, so I let it go. I didn't harbor a grudge. But again, we didn't want to leave Grandma alone for a long day. So I went, hung out with Grammy, and I knit and watched some podcasts. And then I had sent my parents with some money. I said, go buy me some yarn that you know I'll like. You know who I am, the colors I like, the types of fiber. And I said, just try to find me something that I haven't been able to get locally. So they had a blast. I'm so happy for them. I'm so glad that they got out and enjoyed that time together. But it turns out my dad became like a yarn maniac. He's always supported my hobby and my mom's hobby and our crafting. But I guess he was a totally different person. He was walking up and down the aisles and looking at all the equipment. And he picked out the yarn for me. And Dad, you did a really good job. This is Wonderland Yarns. They're Cheshire Cat. It's a sock fingering weight that's 100% superwash merino. So again, probably not good for socks because there's no nylon, but it would be beautiful in a shawl. This is their Tum Tum Tree color series of colors, and it's just this beautiful gradient of greens. I apologize for the glare. I haven't taken them out of the bag yet, just because they're so neatly packaged, but I did open the bag, and oh, they're so soft. I can't wait. This is going to make something beautiful. I have to look to see what patterns might spark my interest, but again, I'm really ecstatic about it. But Dad didn't stop there. He picked me up another package, and this is a gradient package. Same Cheshire Cat fiber, but this is called Firelight's Ruddy Glow. And these are just beautiful. And I feel like I could do something independent with each of these, or together they could be something amazing. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but they're remarkable. And not one, I've seen Wonderland Yarns on Instagram and other projects that I viewed on Ravelry, but I haven't had a chance to actually experience it in person, and I am ecstatic. So, job well done, Dad. I'm very impressed and proud of you, and you may have a career in this for me if this turns into something bigger. I should mention, too, as I perfect my podcasting skills, I am going to be posting certainly notes after the show, and I think I'm going to put them in the comment or the section right under the video. I may also link them out to my blog, or maybe I'll start a Ravelry group. I feel embarrassed about starting a Ravelry group, though, because I just am a knitter with a podcast. I don't have any amazing talent or skill, but perhaps I have to start somewhere. So I don't know. Stay tuned for where the notes will be. I can guarantee they'll be under the video on YouTube, but I might post them elsewhere. And I'm also going to start, YouTube has this feature where you talk about another podcast or something that's on a video to have it come across the screen. So I'm going to include that as well. So you'll be able to access or reference everything I'm bumbling about this afternoon. So that's a pretty significant stash acquisition. But it doesn't stop there. This morning, my mother and I went out because it's Mother's Day weekend. And what else do you do but buy your mother yarn when the two of you love to knit? So we went to Eva's Yarn Shop, which is in Fairhaven, Mass. She is our local yarn store. Eva is fabulous, and I could literally spend hours in her store. So I did buy my mom some fiber. It's back at home with her, but I had to buy myself some fiber too. So I found this pattern. Let me see, I hope I got it out. Yes. So I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Smith's patterns. She is the brains behind the brown stitch. And she has this great summer weight, loose fitting sweater top called Jessie's Girl. I enjoy projects that have a little bit more ease to them and are simple in nature because I like to accessorize, as you can see in my attire today. I was drawn to the pattern. Her patterns are easy to follow and they just have elegant results. So I spent some time looking around Eva's, and I finally settled on this Barocco, their modern cotton DK. I'm not sure if you are familiar with it or not. It's so soft. It's essentially like a single ply as far as the makeup of it, or the put-up of it. But I know there's more strands into it. It's not a single ply, but that's how it kind of appears. It says 60% Pima cotton, 40% modal rayon. 335 yards and a hank, so a significant chunk of fiber right here. This color, it doesn't have the name. That's right, Barocco often does numbers. So this is color 6633. I'll look that up and find out what the exact color is called. But I'm ecstatic. I think that this is going to knit up really well for this pattern. It's going to have that nice sort of comfort summer weight to it. And I guess this is also a good opportunity to share. Do I love a good yarn? Absolutely. And I am so proud and pleased to be able to support indie dyers, particularly because there's one in my family. But I don't want to say that I'm a yarn snob, because that's Julie's podcast. I don't want to steal that from her. But I'm an open-minded yarnist. I'm going to make that a term. Again, love indie dyers, love finding something unique that you can't find everywhere. But I'm also a big fan of the standby yarns, the companies that have been around that do things ethically and environmentally friendly. And sometimes it's a chance to get fiber from across the world because of where the different people that they work with. So Barocco is one of my standbys, and Plymouth Yarn is as well. And what I sometimes like about using their yarns too is I can buy them for the solid color, and then I can combine something that may be a little bit more personalized from an indie dyer into the pattern. So if it's fiber, I really enjoy it. And I will be honest, I'm not a big fan of acrylic. You won't often find me in a big box store buying yarn. I do go to the local yarn store if I'm going to buy anything for a project, but this I'm just so excited about, and it's something new that Eva had gotten in. And that's what I like about Eva's too. I promise this isn't an endorsement, but it's our local yarn store and I adore it. She has a lot of different fibers available for different price points. And I think that that's really important. I think you should be able to knit and craft and crochet and engage in the fiber community without feeling as though you have to be of a certain economic status to do so. So I'm really excited again about that pattern. And then again, I need more socks, right? I have to knit myself socks. I better get moving on this. So I picked up this colorway. I was immediately drawn to a pink and purple and orange blend. Those are sort of my go-to colors. But then I saw this and I was like, it's just amazing. It is like a lavender. There's some blues in there and some greens. This is from Pack-a-Peds. And I've knit with their yarn before. I actually made my mother-in-law a pair of socks for Christmas. And it was really hard to give them to her because they were really, really soft and amazing. But I love my mother-in-law dearly. So when she asked for a pair of socks, she got the pair of socks. But I thought, oh my goodness, there's a chance to get some fiber for myself and knit up a pair. The colorway is Wood Nymph, and it's manufactured in Peru but dyed here in the U.S. So again, another sort of international collaboration. And it's from the Alpaca Yarn Company. So alpaca socks, yeah, I'm in love. These are going to be amazing. Okay. So that was my Mother's Day trip to the yarn store with my mom. Again, I got her yarn. I should have had her come on the podcast, actually. I need to do that one of these days. But before I left, I had to buy a bag. Bags are in my DNA. Outside of yarn and fiber arts, which all of the women in my family participate in, purses, wallets, tote bags. I have way more than one person. One person needs. My mom and I swap them off sometimes. As you can see behind me, I'm here at my craft room, but I have bags that are made out of fiber, courtesy of my mom. They're just a way of life. And then you need project bags. So I may have expanded my collection a little bit today. I saw this, and this is actually from Plymouth Yarn, but it's their handmade accessories collection. So I don't know all the details as to where it was handmade. Perhaps there's a tag on the inside. I haven't fully investigated. But I love this. It's shiny. It's got details. Honestly, I don't know if it will be used for yarn or something else, but it was really cute. And, well, I may not be mother of a child. I'm mother of a pug, so I figured this was my treat yourself for Mother's Day. My husband would really be making fun of me right now if he heard me. All right, so that's enough of the acquisitions. I think I've probably got enough yarn here to last a while. And hopefully by the next time I record, I'll have some of it on the needles for you. So moving along, let's talk a little bit about the finished objects, the FOs. I am so excited I finished a pair of socks. Socks are always on the needles for me, particularly because they're one of those projects that unless you're turning the heel or decreasing for the toe, it's just knitting in the round. Unless, of course, you're knitting following a pattern. I just do vanilla socks a lot of the times. So I have my socks finished. Ta-da! Aren't they awesome? I just love the color. The colorway, it's actually a Misty Alpaca hand-painted sock yarn. The colorway is called Bloodlines, but it just reminds me of a New England autumn. And I kind of like, too, how it has this abstract, kind of intentional patterning to it, but it doesn't show that way on this sock. So it's just sort of how it happenstance when you knit it on the needles and where you pick up and leave off. They are just a simple 1x1 rib. I think I did 12 rows of rib. I don't always like to have a lot of ribbing at the top of my socks. 8 inches for the leg. Traditional heel flap. I love the heel flap pattern. The stitch is just so cool. Turn the heel, decrease, gusset, toe. So nothing too fancy, kind of just, again, the vanilla socks. But they are only the second pair of socks I've knit for myself, so I'm really excited about them. I just need to block them, of course. I do have a little bit of the yarn left. You can kind of see it all balled up. I'm sure I'll find some use for this. Scrap yarn is never at waste in my home. But these I knit on your traditional DPNs. I'm going to, as I mentioned earlier, branch out and do 2 at a time socks. So the next pair of socks I knit, they're going to be 2 at a time, and they're going to be courtesy of Mina, the Knitting Expat. This is the pattern I'm going to be using, free on Ravelry. So stay tuned. I think I can be successful with this. But now that I'm looking at these, another bag. So this bag is the creation of my mother. It's just, I think they're called Japanese knot bags. She just sewed it up one day, has a fun striped lining in it, perfect for socks, particularly if you're doing it 1 at a time because of the room for the one hang. But yeah, again, bag lady right here. Let's see, works in progress. So yeah, that was my 1FO, but I've got some whips to share. I haven't made too much progress on my Lucy cowl. This is the one I sort of bring with me to the doctor's office because again, it doesn't take a whole lot of thinking, it's just knitting them around. I am at the point though where I'm starting the repeat, so this was the initial cast on pink and this is the first repeat. So each color is in the cowl twice. And then it will just be, once I'm done, Kitchener together. Simple piece, again, kind of a nice fun burst of color. So if you're wearing something that's a simple black or gray or white, it pops out a little bit. I'm enjoying it. It's cashmere. So it's my first venture with cashmere. It was the cashmere I could afford, I guess. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not sure. It depends on when I'm done with it, if I'll keep it or if I'll gift it. But again, it was just an opportunity to try a provisional cast on and work with cashmere. The other work in progress that I have at this moment in time is my Find Your Fade. And I haven't made too much progress with it simply because I'm at a point where I need to pay attention because it's the lace repeat. So I think when I recorded my first episode, let's see, I had done the first color and the second color. And I have to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm loving the fade between the second and the third, but I'm not going to frog it. It took me a while to figure out what colors I was going to use because I went right to my stash. I didn't buy anything specific for this project. And this colorway is actually one of my aunt's. It's a beautiful colorway. It's not that there's an issue with the colorway or the quality of the yarn. It's just I'm not sure about the fade between the two. I'm not sure if this pink is picking up the pink in this, and it may be simply that it just doesn't. It's me being critical of myself, but I'm going to stick with it. Reason being that this is my Find Your Fade. I wanted to be frugal. Is frugal the right word? I wanted to pull from my stash. We'll put it that way. And I wanted to use yarns that were special to me. So this is what I'm going to stick with. But I'm at the point in time where I now need to do the lace, and I need to be able to pay attention and not be sleeping when I do that. I had a duh moment with this pattern. It's not incredibly difficult to follow unless you're knitting late at night and unable to focus. I got to the point where I had finished joining the second and the third color, and my stitch count was accurate, but when I looked forward to the next portion of the pattern, my stitch count was going to be off, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Andrea Mowry's amazing. She's the brains behind this pattern. And the pattern says, if you have questions, email. So I emailed her. She got right back to me, which I certainly didn't expect, not because I didn't think she would get back to me, but, you know, I imagine as a knitwear designer, you probably have a pretty busy schedule. She got right back to me, explained what I had done. I just had forgotten to read a portion of the pattern. And, of course, I felt like a huge idiot. I emailed her back. I thanked her so much, and apologized for just kind of doing this in a daze and not really paying as much attention as I should have been, even though I literally probably read the pattern over and over again for a solid 20 minutes. And she was like, no problem. No worries. Glad I could help. And I thought to myself, this is why I love knitting and being part of the fiber community. Again, I'm by no means an expert knitter. I still have a lot of skills and techniques to learn. I do love fiber and yarn and seeing how people come up with their colorways and develop their patterns. And I want to be further embedded in this community. But to be able to access somebody that is so talented and so well regarded is a real treat. So I was really excited about that engagement or that communication, even if it was because I had a completely airhead moment. So moving along, the next color I had chosen was going to be a solid. And this is Quince & Company, or Quince & Co. Chickadee. And Petal, I believe is the color. It's a beautiful fiber. Very soft, and I thought it would fade really nicely with this color. But the more I looked at other fades, I thought, oh, maybe I should stick with something that already has different colors in it rather than doing another solid. The second color, as you can see, the second fiber does have a blend of colors in it. The first one is purely a solid. And I looked at my stash, and I've been really fortunate because my stash has grown dramatically over the last couple of weeks as I look at this pile. But when I started my Find Your Fade, I was also in the midst of a fiber share exchange with Julie from Diary of a Yarn Snob. And Julie gifted me this beauty from the Republic of Wool. This is their twist fingering. It's an 80-20 blend, about 400 yards, in their colorway Puree. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, it's got that peachy color to it, but then it's got speckles, and there's some greens. So this may make its way into my fade. And it simply just wouldn't have been available or been part of my stash at the time I initially laid out all my colors. So I'm thinking this might make its way in. Stay tuned. But I'm hoping the next time I chat with you, I've at least made it through the lace and perhaps into the next color. And you can see here, this bag is amazing. It's got all my colors stashed in it for the fade. It is from A Needle Runs Through It. And she has an Etsy shop. Get a little closer here. A needle runs through it. This bag was gifted to me as part of my fiber share exchange with Julie as well. Julie, if you get her as a partner, if you participate in fiber exchange, is amazing. She's so generous, so thoughtful. So I'm really excited to be able to use this bag and house my entire fade in it, since it is definitely going to be growing as time goes on. All right. So that's whips and FOs. Something I want to share or try to do on a regular basis when I record my podcast is talk about what's in my closet. That might sound a little odd, but I have a number of items that have been hand knit either by myself or by those that are dear to me that are staples in my wardrobe. I like that I have clothes that you can't find anywhere else because it gives me sort of my unique wardrobe flavor, I guess is the best way to explain it. And it happens to be that today, as I record, I'm wearing one of my favorite pieces. So this is a sweater vest that my mom made me. The pattern is from Classic Elite Yarns. It's called Adelaide. And the really cool thing, I'm going to turn around here, is that it's an open back vest with this button at the top. The button's from Katie Westcott or Cat Wrinkles on Etsy. But this is a situation where I found a pattern. I think on their Instagram, and it was the free pattern of the week. And I sent it to my mom, and I was like, isn't this cool? And she was like, buy the yarn, I'll knit it for you. Jackpot. So I purchased the yarn. This is actually Knit Picks. It's their Swish Worsted in Dove Gray. I find that the Swish Worsted from Knit Picks is, not only is it very affordable, but it wears pretty well. It's great for children's items, particularly because it washes well. But I loved the shade of gray, and that it wasn't just a flat gray. That's got a little bit of a heather to it. I'm not sure you can see that on the screen. But it's just one of those pieces here. I can stand up a little bit. You see it's got the seed stitch at the bottom, and then it's got the detail in the neck. I love it, and it's great too because being a vest, it works through multiple seasons. So this is from Katie's Closet. Along with this pin. This pin was knit up by my mom. I don't know the pattern, unfortunately. I don't even know what fiber she used. But they tease me at work because they call me the flower girl. During the summer, I tend to wear a lot of flower pins. I love the garden. I love flowers. I don't know where it all came from, but it's just sort of my trademark. And then in the winter, my neck is constantly wrapped in a scarf. So those are sort of my two seasonal elements, but they are also big pieces of my closet. So that's Katie's Closet for this week. If I can pull off wearing something every time I record, I'll do that, but it's not necessarily likely to happen. Today was just a beautiful coincidence. All right. I want to share with you my Love Local finds for this week. And some of the pieces I've actually had for a while, but this podcast has given me an opportunity to share them. So I think I mentioned in my first episode that every May there is a fiber festival at Coxall Farm in Bristol, Rhode Island, which is part of or adjacent to Colt State Park, which is a beautiful state park. As part of that fiber festival, last year my mom and I went, and we had a great time just meeting different artists, and it's certainly there's yarn available and fiber wares, but there's people who sewists, people who sew. There's pottery there. Again, Kat Wrinkles, she was there with her bamboo buttons and jewelry. So it was just a really great opportunity to get to mix and mingle with those who love all things fiber and sheep related. And we also got to see them shear sheep, which I've experienced before, but it still just blows my mind how they toss the animal around and get that beautiful pelt off them. And it was an opportunity to be outside in early spring in New England. So we had a great time. And while we were there, I picked up a mini skiing kit. And I actually had hanked it because I had big visions for something that I was going to make with it. And I haven't made anything with it yet. And it's not because I don't love the fiber. I have a tendency to buy beautiful yarn and then wait for something to, sort of, I guess, like a lightning bolt to strike me upside the head and say, hey, here, this is what you need to make with it. So I have a hard time committing. I'll buy the fiber, but then I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it. So this was the mini skein set. Okay. It is a beautiful sport weight. It's so soft and plush. This set of colors, this colorway is called Screaming Makes Me Mad, which couldn't be more true. I do not like being angry or screaming, so I thought that was kind of appropriate. But this is from Play It Life Fibers. Play It Life Fibers, again, I apologize, I can't remember the owner's name, but she is out of Fall River, Massachusetts. And Fall River is the sister city to New Bedford, where I live. So it was nice to be able to support somebody local. But Fall River itself is the spindle city. There were a lot of mills, particularly a lot of fiber mills, that have since been converted into other businesses. They're repurposing those facilities, and so much of that actual business has gone overseas, for better or for worse. So again, local artist, somebody who is in a community that was built on the fiber industry, and she does have stuff available on Etsy as well. So just, again, this is a beautiful package. It's her Just Sport, which is an 80-20 blend. So it's a total of 325 yards. So I might make a small kerchief with it. The fact that it has nylon in it, I might be able to make a little pair of socks. I don't know, but the colors are magnificent. So that's one of my locals. The next is my yarn bowl. This yarn bowl was a purchase that I made with my husband. We were at what's called the Big E. It's a festival that's in central Massachusetts. It's like a big fair in the fall. But it has different buildings that are dedicated to each of the 6 New England states. And it gives you a chance to kind of get the local wares from that particular state. So if you go into the building with Maine, you'll find a lot of blueberry-related things. Go into Vermont, a lot of maple syrup. This is from Connecticut. And the potter, or the potter's name is Dawn, but it's from Bear Hills Pottery, and it's in Newtown, Connecticut. It's a hand-thrown yarn bowl, and I love it because it has a chance to just stick a project right in it or to start a project and really finish it in the bowl itself. Full disclosure, I often use this as a piece of art in my home. Here in my craft room, I actually have a plant that sits in it. It's just such a beautiful cobalt blue color that if it's not in use, it can't be hidden away. It's fabulous. I got my mom a matching one. Hers is in more of a taupey color with some sort of gradient color running through it, but just a really sturdy piece. Again, Bear Hills Pottery, and I will link to it in my show notes. And my last local love, and I should mention too that all of these local loves, none of them are endorsements. I'm not paid to do this. These are just products or the things I've happened upon in my journeys at different events and local businesses that I've just really fallen in love with, and I think you may fall in love with them too. So the next one is called Sweet Sheep Body Shop, and Alicia is out of Cranston, Rhode Island, and Alicia makes a number of items for skincare, essentially. I have fallen in love with goat milk soap. I am very prone to significantly dry skin, and during the winter in New England, that is without fail difficult to avoid. So I am indulged in her goat milk soap. She does these cute little, I don't know if you can see it, here, there we go. This happens to be the crisp pear scent, but they are made with healthy, safe ingredients. They're handmade, um, and they have a little bit of like a exfoliant on the back. The scents are not over the top. They're not overwhelming. They're very subtle, and I find that it's safe enough to use on my face as well as the rest of my body. So I highly recommend this goat milk soap. Alicia also makes some lip balms as well, but another favorite of mine are these solid lotion bars. Solid lotion bars, if you're not familiar with them, are lotion, but it's in almost like a piece of soap form, and you just rub it in your fingers. The heat from your fingers softens it up, and you can apply it wherever you need some extra moisture. I suffer from severe eczema. These are a lifesaver. Particularly because depending on what fiber I'm working with, sometimes that can make my eczema flare up a little bit. But these are beeswax based with cocoa butter, mango butter, etc. This scent is lemon cake. It's divine. My dog actually likes to lick my hands after I put it on, which is just, he's a pug. He'd eat anything. But I highly recommend these solid lotion bars, and she again has those in a number of different scents as well. So worth checking out on Etsy for sure. Or if you have the opportunity to participate in a local fiber event, check her out there too if she's got a table set up. So I'm looking at this huge pile on my table, and it's kind of amazing because it's yarn and bags and things I love related to fiber, but I think that's a sign that I need to wrap up. I've shared with you a lot of good finds and a lot of opportunities or exciting things that have happened in the last couple weeks. I hope that you find this helpful and informative, and I look forward to having you join me again when I record my 3rd episode. So until next time, keep knitting, loves, and